We had gone through the system of the transmission of the oral law. We went through disagreement and the different approaches to how one determines halacha when there's disagreement. We then got into the enlightenment and the different ways of dealing with it. I'd like to come back now to the way the system of halacha works, especially with regard to the questions of what are known as chumras and kulos. I want to explain what they're all about. So we've got to remember the basic idea. The system of halacha. Yeah?
What are kulos?
I'm going to explain it. The system of halacha. We said that the laws of Torah are the laws of nature that govern our souls, meaning that are life-giving. These are metaphysical. They give life to our souls. They give quality of life in the eternity to our souls. I did point out that since the creator of our body and our psyche happens to be the same one that created our souls, it's got to be that this is the ideal for your body and psyche as well. Meaning a Torah lifestyle has got to be a healthy one. Physically, emotionally. Otherwise, something's wrong. He created our bodies one way and our souls a different way, and you're going to have to go and sacrifice one for the other. Doesn't sound right. Everything is synchronized. But the underlying reason for the entire system of halacha is these are the laws of nature that govern our souls. The same way your body needs nutrition, your body needs vitamins, your body needs oxygen. Our souls need, the Jewish soul needs 613 commandments. The negatives are things that make a mess of your soul, and the positives are things that give your soul, that build your soul, give your soul quality of life in the eternity. And therefore we say that in determining halacha, we've got to be scientific, meaning it's not a matter of aesthetics, it's not a matter of Western style, it's a matter of really trying to get to the sources and understanding what does the halacha really say. We got into the problem of disagreement, where while the Torah commands us to set up a Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin, this was the sort of the Supreme Court of the nation, and they had the responsibility of interpreting the oral law when there was disagreement. And the Torah tells us to follow them, which means the Torah says what you've got to do is what the Sanhedrin tells you to. Even though there is that was set up, we don't have a Sanhedrin today. And the question is, what do we do when we're left with different opinions? So we saw that there were two systems for determining it. One was the one that was taken on by Rabbi Yosef Karo and then Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, which is, in the case of Rabbi Yosef Karo, we go by the majority of the opinions that we have. The other approach was study the Gemara and give your own personal understanding of it and which of the different opinions that you personally follow. Those are two approaches. The Jewish nation, by and large, chose to follow Rabbi Yosef Karo and Moshe the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, simply because the responsibility of determining on your own what is right, what is wrong, is just overwhelming. One exception I mentioned was the Vilna Gaon. The Gaon does just that. In several places in the Gemara, we find that even though someone felt that the halacha was a certain way, because there was another opinion, and that opinion was more strict, they would keep a stringency. It's referred to as chumrah. A chumrah literally means stringency. The halacha was determined to be X. There is an opinion that is more strict, and one chooses to follow that more strict opinion. Now, why should one do that? And when does one do that? Luzzatto in Mesilas Yesharim gives us the guidelines, and he says, if you study the works of an opinion, and it's more stringent, and we don't follow that opinion, but the opinion makes sense to you, the right thing to do is to be more strict. It's chumrah, because the halacha was to follow, say, the majority, and there's a minority opinion. If there's a minority opinion that makes sense to you and it's more strict, then the right thing to do is to be more strict and follow. Says the Mesilas Yesharim, he dedicates an entire chapter to this. He says that unlike halacha, when it comes to chumrah, it cannot come at the expense of something that's not right. What does that mean? So he says, number one, in a case where there was major disagreement and it was finally resolved, by you following the opinion that we don't follow, you're reawakening that disagreement. Don't do it. He's referring to one particular, not a situation, but a group of situations. Remember, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, they argued over so many things, till finally, and this really split the rabbis. Some followed Beis Hillel, some followed Beis Shammai. They finally resolved that the halacha was like Beis Hillel. For you to go and revive that old disagreement and follow Beis Shammai is not accepted, because it's causing negativity. That's one example. But there are several other examples. The second example is something that comes at the expense of another person. Included in that is to make other people feel like you're holier than them. It is not permissible to keep a stringency that will make other people feel uncomfortable as if you're saying you're better than them. That's unacceptable. Yeah.
That's based off their feeling if you do something?
Yes.
So how can you know?
You know the kinds of things that make other people feel uncomfortable.
But like in a context of like I want to do like an extra.
I want to do something. I want to do something extra. But how are the people around me going to feel? If they're supportive, if they appreciate the fact that there's somebody that does these things, wonderful. But if they're just going to take it as my statement that I'm better than them, don't do it. You got to hear, this is a classic. Moshe Feinstein was known as the foremost posek halacha decision maker in the previous generation. He rules that blended whiskey that contains a certain amount of grape alcohol. He said blended whiskey, he said it was permissible, but he said there is a chumrah, a stringency, to follow the opinions that it's not. Then he writes there, you may ask me why you may have seen me drink blended whiskey in public. So Moshe Feinstein writes, if I'm at some occasion where they offer me a l'chaim of whiskey and it's blended, if I will refrain from accepting it, it will be taken as an expression of being holier than everybody else. I will therefore drink blended whiskey. Now, there's Moshe Feinstein. Someone's going to feel judged because Moshe Feinstein keeps that stringency. But he was sensitive to that. He said, he drinks it. Yeah.
the mitzvah of wearing the tzitzit with the tilchelet. Obviously, if someone wears that, it's because they believe that the plain white is not adequate. And if they're
Well, we all agree that plain white is not adequate.
Right.
We all agree that you have that chelet. The question is this chelet or not? This is not a question of holier or not holier.
okay.
This is a question of whether it's not saying I'm better than you, right? What it's saying is I believe this is the
I believe,
authentic
okay.
one.
Okay.
So that's,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Another example, which is also very important. Something that comes at the expense of someone else, you're going to make them work hard. So you got to hear this one. Famous story of Rabbi Berkovits, the founder of the Muslim movement. It says when you wash your hands for the meal, the more water you use, the better. This way you can be sure your whole hand was really covered. Because we're afraid that if you skim, then maybe some parts of your hand didn't get washed. So people used to use a lot of water. Now in those days, there was no running water at home. The maid would get water from the well. So Rabbi Berkovits used to say, you think you're being holy by making the maid work twice as hard? Use the minimum amount of waters. Don't make her work hard. That's what he used to say. Notice, your holiness should not come at the expense of anybody else. Now that includes family. And often this is a major issue. Often you get some father or mother, today in this day and age, mother, father, they both studied a lot and they picked up stringencies and they want to keep them. What food they're going to eat, what foods they're not going to eat. What they'll allow to be done in the home on Shabbat and what not. Past the actual halacha, where they like what they read. They want to keep a stringency. And the kids grow up feeling deprived and sometimes oppressed. That's prohibited. Not allowed to do that. You want to keep stringencies? Good for you. Not at the expense of your family. Yeah.
I feel like that's really common in maybe certain like more religious communities, like the whole community will be doing like stringencies.
No. When it's the done thing in the community, that's something else. It becomes the custom of the place.
Okay.
I'm talking about where individuals take things on themselves as they learn more. And they end up keeping all sorts of stringencies that are really inconveniencing or irritating their kids. So you've got to have the foresight, not wait until your kids are all messed up and then see what you can do for them. Certainly if it means putting them to work. This includes wife, kids. Then comes the next level. Certainly, you don't keep a stringency if it's going to cause resentment within yourself. It's very problematic. Often we're excited about stuff and we get into it. But the excitement, after a while, wears off. And we realize that we're keeping so much more than we really have to. And it becomes a real burden. Never take on anything. The truth is, in the process of growing into things, you never grow too much at a time. But certainly something that is not a requirement in halacha, it's just a stringency. Don't do that if there's going to be some kind of inner resentment. Yeah.
Can you give an example of something that might be considered that? Like a stringency that, just in this context?
I have lots of them, but I don't know how many of them you're going to relate to. Let's talk about kashrut. There are lots of different levels of what's kosher and what isn't kosher. Don't go, starting to keep the highest levels of kashrut before you know that you can handle it yourself.
Yeah.
Like a common example, and these are details in halacha, the Sanhedrin, before the destruction of the Second Temple, made a rule that a Jew cannot drink milk if you did not have a Jew observing the milking. If a non-Jew milks a cow and there's no Jew around, that milk is not kosher. Not kosher. What's the reason for it? Because there were times that they were mixing cow's milk with the milk of other animals. And by the way, there are countries in Europe where that is still practiced. And the reason they do it is it makes for higher quality milk. In America, and in a lot of civilized countries, but especially in the US, the FDA insists that all milk is cow's milk, and if they catch you using anything but cow's milk, you're out of business. The fines will just put you out of business. It doesn't pay. Moshe Feinstein therefore ruled that in America, although you don't have a Jew observing, you know for a fact that the milk is cow's milk and it's therefore permissible. It's kosher. He said, if you want to be strict, a nice stringency would be to insist that it be milk that was observed by a Jew at the time of the milk. Okay? So we consider drinking American milk, American milk that does not have someone observing it. We consider not drinking that as a stringency. So you can have lots of examples of this. Number one, yourself. You decide you want to be strict. You only have what we call Chalav Yisrael, Jewish milk. You decide that's all you're going to have. You happen to be in a place where there is no Jewish milk. Or, it turns out now you have to give up your favorite ice cream. You gotta know what's going on here. Where are you up to? How are you going to get to it? But better yet, you decide to be strict. How about your wife? What if it's her favorite ice cream? And then your kids, they're very limited. And then they can't eat in their friends' houses either. So you don't go keep